Okay, not bad. For the first time, I guess you get a two-in-one hot lap, and as you can see, from two back-to-back hot laps, there's a bit more time there. I think 15.8 is definitely possible. Um, Missed a few apexes here and there, but that's normal skill issue with me. And let's get to the setup, which is the important thing, and how do we tackle. Oh, so lightning! It's raining now. Okay, and it's getting kind of cold. So setup, it is as usual adjusted from the world record setup. There's not much you really need to do. Nowadays in this game at least, the world record setups are pretty usable. Yeah. Excuse the human traffic. Okay, so back to the story. A front wing, rear wing, it's almost the same. I think it's exactly the same as the world record setup. Let me just quickly save this setup that I just adjusted from the world record setup, and let's just see what are the key differences, why they're different. Aerodynamics, they are pretty much the same. 22 on the front, 17 on the rears. And that's just to give you a balance between straight line speed and cornering speed here in Mexico. You want to prioritize top speed as well, straight line speed in the pit straight especially, because this is going to be your main overtaking zone. And the only DRS detection zone, well, the first in the last sector, if you get in the detection zone, you get DRS for two zones, the first straight and the second straight. So it's a single detection for two DRS zones. So it's going to be important. If you can make the move in the first corner, you can easily hold off the person in the second straight. And if you're quicker in the middle sector, then you're good to go on the next lap. Now again, coming to the middle sector, you don't really need that much wings actually. When I tested out, just doing some Frankenstein setups here and there, going higher wings at one, yeah, you definitely gain about 2 or 3 tenths easily in the corners. In sector 2, sector 3, these are the parts of the track where there's a lot of high speed corners. You definitely gain a lot more with those high downforce setup, but you lose back all this time, all the advantage on the pit straight. So you're making yourself vulnerable to overtakes, especially in the race. In qualifying, maybe you can go with higher downforce if you want to, maybe one click higher and whatnot if you have park permit turned off. But if it's a normal race where park permit is on and whatnot, you have to go for a compromise. So this is the best compromise I have for myself. In the race, again, you can start with low wing 21 or 20, whichever you feel. But if you go too low in on the front wing at the start with heavy fuel and all, you're gonna get a lot of understeer in corners. You'll lock up a lot. You'll be losing a lot of time. So it's generally advised to stay the same or just go one click higher at the start. And then when you enter the pit lane for pit stop, you can drop the wing by 1 or 2 clicks and you'll be fine. Transmission 55 on throttle. Again, this track has a lot of slow speed corners. I tried the usual Frankenstein setups of 51, 52, even 3 didn't really work out. So 4 and 5 was just nice. Again, I don't know, it might be just a skill issue thing, but 55 on throttle made sure that I didn't get any wheel spin on the exit. Sometimes when you go too low, you get wheel spin as well, and it gave me a good acceleration out of the slow speed corners. 60 will be better, especially at the slower corners in sector 1 and start of sector 2. And then in sector 3, you pretty much want to use sector 2 and 3, you want to use maybe 55, so you get more rotation in high speed. Off throttle, I've kept it at 50. 51 also feels nice, especially if you are very aggressive on the sector 2 SS curbs. 51 off throttle will make sure that your car doesn't become unstable out of nowhere on these parts. Qualifying, I like to keep it at 50 because more rotation, easier to extract more lap time out of the car. Race, you're not necessarily going to be 100%. Sometimes you're in a train, you're not 100% pushing, you're not even 90% at some times, so you can be driving slower and safer. Suspension geometry, always the same. I think we don't need to talk about this already anymore, towards the end of the game. It's been the cycle since the start. suspension, you want to go with kind of soft suspension setup, and I'll show you the world record setup after this, what was different and why I changed it. But generally I've left the suspension and anti-roll bar setup the same. You can go even lower, but that's gonna create a bit of instability in those high speed corners. So maybe you want it a bit stiff. 2, 3, just nice. Anti-roll bar, well, if you have oversteer on exit, say you're still smooth on the power, you're very smooth on the acceleration, but as soon as you try to get the power down, the car just snaps, goes into an oversteer. You can try to go up on the anti-roll bar on the front, see if that resolves the issue, or you can go lower. Sometimes it's the opposite, depending on how the car balance is. If your car is really understeery by nature, there's high chance you will get a lot of oversteer on the exit. Entry understeer can turn into, well, oversteer on the exit, snap oversteer. So sometimes doing the counterintuitive thing might work out for you and might not work out for the other person. It's all coming down to driving style. So start with this, you'll be fine. And ride height, I think 5.5 is as low as you can go, and otherwise you'll bottom out on the high speed curbs around here. Just nice. 5.5 is just nice. The world record setup is running a 6.7 setup, which is again understandable because in time trial you want to maximize every inch of the track. You saw in the sector 2, I didn't even take the full curbs at the SS at the start at least, and that's because I don't want to risk the car just spinning out of nowhere, bottoming out and ruining my lap. It's a safer approach. Maybe I'll lose about a tenth and a half or 2 in pure lap time, but it makes sure at least your car is still pointing in the right direction. So if that's what you want, you can go a little bit higher or even lower, whichever you want. Now the benefit of going lower is definitely, let's say we start off at 6.7. I went low on the rear ride height by 2, and that improves a bit of the slow speed acceleration, the traction out of slow speed corners. It definitely helps. But in the high speed you can feel the understeer because now your rear of your car is sitting lower, so that's creating a bit more understeer. To counter that, I just lowered the front ride height. So effectively, we started off, say this is 6.7, and then I did this to 6.5, and then I did 5.5. So it's kind of like leveling out the car. You have to adjust this as you go. Now you can increase it, maybe just 1 click, decrease it 1 click, 5.6. It will also work out for you. Again, this is very subjective. You have to try it out. If you are bottoming out on the curbs, go higher 1 inch, you'll be fine. If you're already at 8.8 and you're still bottoming out or something, then it's definitely a skill issue. Then you have to look at how you're driving over the curbs. Maybe you have to adjust the setup, maybe run higher wings or something, or avoid the curbs altogether, and you may find some lap time in that. Brakes, 100 pressure always. Brake bias, interestingly, many parts of this track you can run 51, and in the race also, because the rear tires will take a bit more beating around here. So as you want to protect the race up more and more, you can push the brake bias to 51, 52 throughout the race. And as you saw in the second hot lap, I broke with 51 into turn 1. Well, that's because in a practice race or in a fun race that I did, I tried some overtakes around the outside at turn 1. If you're especially going to brake around the outside into turn 1, I definitely recommend at least trying out 51, so that you don't lock up your rears and just oversteer in turn 1, because you'll be braking deep into turn 1 and you're still braking as you're turning. So you want the rear to be a bit stable. 51 will help you with that. Otherwise, if you're just racing like normal, then go with 50, you'll be fine. Tire pressures, wow, surprise, minimum tire pressures. This is to start the race. 50% race, 100% race, whatever race that you're doing, you want to start with minimum tire pressures. And say you're doing a practice run and you feel like, okay, yeah, the race can take a bit more temperature, they are very low or something, say they are like 86, 87, 88 all the time, you can definitely try going a little bit higher, so that will help you, 1, with stability on the rear, 2, it will help to reduce tire wear, not much, but it helps you a bit. So that's a good thing. And be mindful whenever you increase the rear tire pressure relative to the front, you are sort of like giving more rotation on the rear as well. More stability also, yes, but it also increases the amount of rotation you get from the rear. So that might cause some understeer, some oversteer in your car, maybe in a high speed corners if you have too much pressure. But the game works in a funny way. So, running minimum, running 2 clicks higher or whatever doesn't really affect you as long as it suits your driving style. That's it. And let's recap this real quick as usual. 22, not as usual. What I meant is, as usual, let's recap the setup. 2217 is what you could be running here. If you want to go even lower downforce, if you expect everyone to be running this and you want to go even lower, sure, be my guest, be your guest, be everyone's guest and go lower. Don't go any lower than 2 or 3 clicks, because then you will start to lose a lot of time in the middle sector. Unless you have significant pace advantage over the others, you can keep up with them in the corners. This will definitely help you to make the overtakes on the straight easily and recharge more battery as well. So win-win, I guess, and that will be good for you. For the rain, if it's going to be inters throughout the race, for example, then you go up by 5 each. That will be beneficial. Otherwise, keep it the same. If it's dry to wet, you want to prioritize a wet setup. Again, very subjective. It's half dry, half wet. You can even start on the dry setup, be quick on the dries, and then just hold for your own life in the wets. And if it's the opposite, it starts off with inters and then goes to dry at the end. You could also start on the wet setup, but you'll be slower at the end of the race when it's dry. Again, it's a choice you have to make. And not much you have to change here. Keep the transmission 55, 50, 51 for race is definitely recommended, especially since there's a lot of rear tire wear around here. This will help to keep the rear a bit balanced, a bit planted as your tires are wearing out. And you can also use 60 differential in the race. Normally that will help as your tires are wearing down. Also, it gives you less oversteer on corner exits. Suspension geometry the same, suspension the same as well. For the rain, just go from 5.5 or whatever you're running. I'd say run at least 7 or 8 on the rear. 8 on the rear will be just nice in the wets, and maybe 7 on the front. So go like 7.8 or 8.8 in the wets. You'll be fine. You don't lose time on the straights because, well, it's the wets. What matters is the exits that you get out of there to defend. Okay, and yeah, brakes are the same, tire pressures will be the same. You can experiment with higher tire pressures in the wets. That will help you to increase your tire life, less tire wear. But if you don't feel confident, you can always leave it at minimum. This will give you better traction, especially in the rain. It's going to be slower anyway. Cool. So that's the end of the setup. Now let's just quickly glance over what's the world record setup here. Everyone's using the same. Was it Nico's I took? I don't know. Just set yesterday. So yeah, there you go. He's using 50, but this is probably 50 on throttle is probably in the middle sector where you need a bit more rotation, right? But 55, 50, 60, that's what everyone uses. So it's the same setup everywhere. 2131, 6, 7 on the right height, 150 on the brakes, and time trial tire pressures, minimum front, maximum rear. There's no question in that. So yeah, you see this is not really race usable pressures for this track at least. So you want to be running slightly lower, start at lowest actually. And yeah, that's about it. Right height again, normally when you reduce the tire pressures, I like to reduce the front right height as well a bit, or increase the front wing, or reduce the rear wing so that it gives me a bit more cornering, a bit more turn in. When you lower the rear pressures, it makes the car a bit understeery especially. So yeah, there you go. And it started to rain very heavily. I can't hear myself anymore. Hope you enjoyed this one. Good luck in Mexico, have fun, stay safe, and let's see you maybe. There's 3 more tracks to go: Monaco, USA, and Singapore. 2 tracks three tracks. Yeah, three tracks. One of it which I hate a lot, which is of course Monaco. But yeah, see you. Bye bye.